Welcome to the Metamorphosis Project Podcast. I'm your host, Tina Eichenberg, and this is a space where transformation begins. Here, we dive deep into energy healing, self-care, and the power of mindset to help you break free from old patterns and design a life that feels aligned, vibrant, and authentically you. Each week, we explore the tools, techniques, and real-life experience that guide us toward lasting healing and growth. Because true metamorphosis isn't just about change. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. Now, let's get into this week's conversation. Welcome back to the Metamorphosis Project Podcast. I am Tina, your host, and today I have Todd Payne back with me. Thank you so much for coming back, Todd.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So today we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. And this is something that, gosh, a lot of us in this day and age, our age range, the Gen X, I think, to millennial, maybe even going down, because a lot of Gen X just does not, we weren't taught to regulate our emotions. So like we were, briefly discussing right before we hit record, emotional regulation goes hand in hand with emotional intelligence. If you can't regulate your emotions, then obviously you don't have that emotional intelligence to understand what emotions you're having.
Yeah, emotional regulation is really one component of emotional intelligence, and I talk about, or the research shows there are four pillars to
Mm-hmm.
emotional intelligence. They are self-awareness, self-management, under which emotional regulation, as we've been talking about, falls, but also then other awareness, and relationship management or interaction management. You could
Mm-hmm.
kind of picture it as a little box. The top of the box is awareness, the bottom of the box is management, the left side of the box is self, the right side of the box is other.
Oh, I
Now
love that.
we can't manage others. We
Right.
can only
No,
manage our
no, as much as
interactions
we
with others,
try.
right? As much as we want to. We can only manage our interactions with others.
Right.
But in order to have emotional regulation, we have to have a modicum of awareness about ourselves. What triggers us? What brings us peace? How do we regulate in terms of who we are physiologically, neurologically, the choices we make, our personalities? But it also requires knowing about other people. Like, what about my wife triggers me, and how do I help her not reach that place? That would be the relationship. So they're all interconnected, these four, and I like to think of them as staves in a barrel. If you had a barrel, with maybe rainwater in it or something like that, whichever one of the staves is the shortest one is where all the water pours out.
Oh, right.
So you might be great at emotional management. You might be great at self-regulation or emotional regulation, self-management. But if you have no awareness of other people and how
Right.
they affect
Right.
you, or how you affect, all the water pours out there. So
Right.
they're interconnected. They're independent in terms of learnable as skills, but they are interconnected in terms of the overall growing of our own emotional intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, having those four quadrants that make up that emotional intelligence. How did you come to, was this something that you learned in the through the teachings of when you were going through for church, or was this
Right.
afterwards, or was it before?
Yeah, great question. And the short answer is, I learned a lot of this in pieces, in
Mhm.
hodgepodge, a little bit here, a little bit there. Certainly, there was a lot of training when I was being trained as a minister. Self-awareness was a big part of it. Self-management, not so much so.
Right.
Other awareness was a big part of it. But then when I actually was in the trenches as an ordained minister for 20 years, there was a lot of learning interaction management and learning some self-management when I would be triggered or frustrated. And then for me, it all coalesced around the Enneagram when I learned that I received a sabbatical. I was an ordained minister for 20 years. I got a sabbatical about 15 years in. And I learned the Enneagram on my sabbatical. And
Mhm.
the Enneagram gave structure and shape to all four of those categories for me. Traditionally, and the Enneagram is very ancient, 3,000 years old. Traditionally, it's used really for self-awareness.
Mhm.
But what I saw was this application of, but it also teaches us what to do when we're not where we want to be centered or balanced. It also teaches me to look behind the curtain at other people and what's going on with them and how they are the way they are, which then, of course, leads to it teaches me how to interact with them. So
Right.
there are 9 Enneagram types. And what I like, the metaphor I like to use is that there are like keys, like playing music. You know, a song might be in the key of B, and so there are certain notes available to you. And if you play outside of those notes, it feels weird inside the song. And so the types in the Enneagram are numbered to number one, number two, number four, number nine.
Mhm.
So I play in the key of two. My wife is a two. When we're talking, I speak in the key of two. And
Yeah.
she, in turn, I'm a type five. She's learned to speak in the key of five. So they all coalesced for me. And then, of course, then I read the emotional intelligence, the seminal work, and some of the subsequent people who've expanded on that and the research. But it was lovely that it wasn't just emotional intelligence in this broad way. It was, what is a person's personality type? All right, I could teach them about themselves. I could teach them how to manage themselves. I could teach them how they see other people. I could teach them what's going on with other people so that they can interact with them from their own strengths or their own perspective. And all
Right.
four of those quadrants, I'm able to, those staves of a barrel, I'm able to help people raise them using the Enneagram as what I like to say is the Enneagram's the car we're going to climb into, but emotional intelligence is the road we're going to drive down.
Oh, I like that. I really do. That's yeah, that's to be able to learn to talk with other people based off of their personality and being able to see it on paper probably helps a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a remarkable moment when I work with couples when they see what their partner is dealing with.
Hmm.
I call it a peek behind the curtain. And there's a softening of the heart. There's a space of empathy that
Right.
is created when they go, oh, I'm suffering. He's also suffering. We suffer for different reasons, but we are together in our suffering.
Right.
And that's often the space when a lot of communication blossoms, a lot of patterns can be broken, a lot of new ground can be covered when we are empathic or empathetic toward what others are going through, and we make the effort to play in a different key, to transpose our song into their key.
Now, because I'm sure half of the couple that has come to you maybe has asked this question. What if the other partner does not want to take the test? Is there
Right.
a way to learn how to help them, how to communicate with them based off of your
Hmm.
perception of them?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I think there's sort of two questions embedded in there, and the first is, can we know another person's type? And the short answer to that is there are ways. We can certainly guess. And as you pointed out, there are tests.
Right.
But I do find that the problem when someone tells you your type, or the problem for that matter, when an algorithm tells you your type because you've taken the test, is that then the results become about how accurate you think they are. So you take a test online, you get a profile, and your response isn't, this is a picture of me. Your response is, how accurate is this profile of
Right.
me? And so
Right.
you go through it and you say, this is me, this isn't me, this is sort of me. That really undoes a lot of the value of what the Enneagram offers. So I prefer to have people find themselves in the Enneagram and it's self-type, as we call it, because ultimately it's an act of confession. When you say I'm a five, you're saying I claim the self-talk, I claim the pitfalls, I claim the blind spots, I claim the strengths, and it's
Right.
a very different thing than being told. So the short answer is, yeah, we can guess at other people's types, and certainly it's of value. I tend to encourage people to take a broader picture because in the world of the Enneagram, while there are 9 types, they all fall into one of 3 categories: a heart-centered type, a head-centered type, and a gut-centered type. And that's often enough to get us on the way to changing the ways that we interact with them. The second question that I heard you ask is, without knowing a person's type, is there anything that we can do?
Hmm.
And that's really where that box image of the 4 pillars of emotional intelligence comes in. Yes, there's a lot we can do in self-awareness. There's a lot we can do in self-management. And there's a lot we can do in interpersonal interactions, all without knowing the other person's type.
Hmm.
So I do have clients who come to me and they say, my husband won't come. He won't
Right.
come to the therapy. He's not interested, blah, 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 blah. And I say, well, all hope isn't lost. Now, it's a little unfair to ask one person in a relationship to
To
do
do
all
all the
the
work.
heavy
Yeah.
lifting.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And so that's
Absolutely.
part of the process I go through with people. I'm like, okay, well, is this what do you want to shoulder this all yourself? Is
Right.
this healthy,
Right.
healthy and good for you, healthy and good for the relationship? But yes, there are things we can do even if we don't know the other person's type, and even more if we do know their type.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you said, you asked them, do they want to carry that weight of being the only one who is doing the work? Because
Yeah,
that's, I run into that quite a bit in my work as well. Is I'll have women come to me and say, hey, things are not going well between me and my husband. Can you work on the energies between us? And I'm like, absolutely. But if he doesn't want to come in and have his own energy work done and face some things, it's only going to last for so long.
right.
It's only going to work for so long. So is that something that you want to continue going down that path? And sometimes it is their path to continue down that path. And sometimes that wakes them up and go, oh,
Yeah.
I
Well,
see.
there's an African proverb that states, if you want to go far, go alone. Oh no, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Right.
And I bring a little bit of that to couples work. It's like, yeah, we can address some issues. We can get some
Right.
things fixed. We can resolve. But 10 years from now, you're probably going to be resentful. You're probably going to be tired. And where will you be in your life then? Do we want
Right.
maybe so conscious uncoupling is a part of relationship work. It happens. And I would rather facilitate that than have it be blow ups where people are hurt, where children are hurt, where
Hmm.
communities, families are broken. So you have to be willing to entertain that reality when one person is resistant. But the
Right.
truth of the matter, and I think, I don't know, some people don't see this, but the truth is, human beings grow, period. End of story. From
Right.
the day you're born to the day you die, you don't ever stop growing. So the choice is, are we going to grow toward one another or away from one another? There's
Right.
no option about growing, only
Right.
about direction.
Right. And I think that goes for all relationships, parent-child
Absolutely.
relationships, friend and friend relationships. If you're not growing together, you're going to grow apart.
That's exactly right. And I've had friends 20 years ago, and I haven't seen them, and it's my fault because I haven't kept in touch, and I haven't. And that's just how life goes.
Yeah.
It takes work to be in relationship.
On both
For me,
parts. Both parts.
on both parts.
Yeah.
And for me, that was one of the big growth edges for me as a type 5. Type 5s have a sort of fundamental belief that the human relationships are too much effort and they're just not worth it. But I was around 40 when I just woke up one day and said, being good at being alone and liking being alone are not the same thing. And I don't like being alone.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that, yes, they are work, but the false part of the belief was that work isn't worth it. The work
Right.
is worth it. And that's a lot of the coaxing or the carrot that I'm waving for people who have a partner that's less than willing.
Hmm.
And frequently, if I can have just one meeting with the partner who's less than willing, I can break down a lot of barriers. I can make a lot of personal connections, and
Right.
and bring them into the process. But I
Right.
have to have the one meeting. If you
Right.
want to give me the one.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people um who are resistant to doing the work in a relationship, they don't want their dirty laundry aired to somebody they don't know.
100%.
Right? But on the other
100%.
hand, they don't want their dirty laundry aired to somebody they do know. right? They just don't want to they don't want to admit that they may be part of the problem.
And that's a part of the one of the gifts of the
Right.
Enneagram in that that quarter of other awareness,
Yeah.
because I was that way when I first learned about the Enneagram. I wouldn't tell anyone that I was a Type 5 because I thought that would weaponize it. Like, now they know something about me, they're going to use it against me.
Well, a lot of people probably would, right? It's like
Uh,
when somebody tells someone, "Hey, I was diagnosed with this," right? Whether it be a mental illness or whatever,
sure.
it does become weaponized to some people, which is unfortunate.
When we are exposed to the fact that all of us are in the same boat, that's one of the things that the peek behind the curtain the Enneagram does. Then we're a little more, I find people to be a little bit more willing to be vulnerable, to share their
Mhm.
dirty laundry,
Yeah.
because they go, oh, you're also sharing yours. You also have dirty laundry.
Right.
In
Right.
fact, I like to say that a healthy relationship actually has only two ingredients: shared experience and mutual vulnerability.
Hmm.
And you can't have the second without the first. So it starts with spending time together. But this is why very unlike individuals who serve together in the military are lifelong friends. They have had
Hmm.
a shared experience, and being shot at means they've had mutual vulnerability, and that makes them tight. And so that vulnerability is a key aspect to, we can't solve the problem between you if you won't tell me that you're hurting. We
Right.
can't solve the problem between you if you won't admit to me that this is how you actually feel
Right.
about your partner or about whatever, your family.
Yeah.
So it's an essential step, but we don't have to only come at it in the confessional route of, um, let me tell you about what's going on with me. One of the gifts of the Enneagram approach is that I tell you about you, or rather, I tell you about your type, and let you connect the dots. Say, fives are usually socially awkward, and then the five will go, well, yeah, I guess that's true. I
Right.
am socially awkward, and not me going, are you socially awkward? Right, which is so pointed and so heavy.
Right. Right.
And that goes with any of the pitfalls of any of the types. When we talk about them in a neutral way, in a sort of a Switzerland ground, a Switzerland where nobody is coming in attack, because we're not talking about Todd, we're talking about fives. My wife's name is Stacy. We're not talking about Stacy, we're talking about twos.
Right.
And that gives us some emotional distance that allows us to enter at our own pace, like wading into the water.
Okay. I like how you come at, because a lot of people would put up that wall if you were
Yeah.
like, like you said, like, are you socially awkward? Right? They don't, nobody wants to admit that they're socially awkward,
Right.
right? Or that they're introverts, or
Or
that,
that they are bad with boundaries, or
right,
that, yeah, exactly. No, they don't want to. They want to appear good. They want
right,
to appear. But I also normalize that. I'm like, it's normal for you to put up a wall. It's normal for you to want to cover this up. And
right.
then what I really want to do is I want to take the shame away. And one of the ways that I do that is to say that in the world of the Enneagram, all personality traits are value neutral, all of them, because we can use them to further healthy aims, community,
Mhm.
relationship, well-being. We can also be tripped up by them when we overuse them, over rely on
Right,
them, let them blind us. So
right,
when I set that out, I say, doesn't matter what you're about to say, I'm going to receive it as a neutral trait, and I'm going to turn it around and tell you why it's a great thing that you are that way. That melts a
yeah,
lot of the
yeah,
resistance.
yeah. And I love how you refer to them as personality traits.
Yeah,
And personality, because personality traits are just, they're just a formation of how we were raised, what our environment was,
100%.
what our
Yeah,
experiences were,
absolutely.
and it's at no fault of our own, right? It's, there are no faults. We are not faulted. Our personality traits are just a
That
makeup
what
of
the,
who we are.
in large part, they are survival adaptations.
Yeah.
And when I can say to people, whatever whatever it is that you're doing that's causing a stumbling block between you and your partner, you're getting in your own way in your life, um, I can help you see why that has served you, why you needed that to get to where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
then it's not a detriment. It's not a personality flaw. It's just a pattern you fall into that
Right.
sometimes doesn't serve you. And really, our work is not to break patterns. Our work is to properly apply them.
Yeah.
I like to compare Enneagram work to the anonymous programs. I say, that, listen, if you're in 12 step, if you're doing Alcoholics Anonymous, um, not that it's easy, I don't mean to diminish it. It's incredibly difficult to get sober. But if you're in that program, don't go to the bar, don't go to the liquor store, don't have alcohol in your house. Abstinence is a tool that you can use.
Right.
With Overeaters Anonymous, however, we can't use abstinence. You
Right.
can't
Right. You
not
have to
eat.
eat.
You
Right. You
can't
have to.
not
Right.
eat. So
Right.
instead, we have to approach it differently. We have to ask, what does hungry feel like? What does full feel like? What does indulging feel like? And when is it okay to indulge? And when I do indulge, how do I pull myself back?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Enneagram work is. What are my personality traits and how can I properly apply them in the right times? And when am I misapplying them?
Right.
And when are they controlling me? And how can I pull back and use a different tool in that space?
Yeah. And that kind of that also kind of relates to that emotional intelligence. Like how can we use those tools in our communication along with our Enneagram to kind of to propel our the only thing that's coming to mind is our communication, to propel our communication. What?
Connection, maybe, because it's more
Yeah,
than just
yeah,
communication, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
The key word for me, I spend a lot as a business owner. They always ask you, what are your values? What are your business's values?
Mhm.
And for me, I have three: awareness, intentionality, and counterbalance. And I find often counterbalance, it's like if you are feeling like you don't want anybody to know what's going on, that's when you really need to bring people in. I don't
Yeah.
know if you've raised children, but when children are little, as parents, I remember my wife and I laughing at our kids because the more they say they don't want a nap, the
Right.
more they need the nap. And there's a little bit of that counterbalance as the approach. It's like the whatever it is that you're really, really resisting, let's just sort of gently lean in that direction and discover that what is actually happening is that your body, your spirit is telling you that's what you need.
Right. It's right. It's that, people say that change is uncomfortable. Well, that's why change is uncomfortable, is because you're often resisting that change, but whatever you resist persists.
Yeah,
And usually it is what you need most.
that's exactly it. Yeah.
I can remember when I was um trying to discover why I was so tired all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
was diagnosed with hypersomnia and Hashimoto's, and I was so
Oh boy.
resistant to changing my diet.
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time I was so resistant to it until I finally just said, you know what, screw it, I'll go gluten free. And then once I went gluten free, it was easier to go dairy free and soy free. And um, I often think I need to go back to that. But because it is such a hard change, it is such an
Absolutely.
uncomfortable change because I'm the only one in my family that has to do it.
Oh boy. I
Right. So
get
that
that.
so there are so many things that we as humans have to do alone,
Yep. This is true.
and learning emotional intelligence is one of them. We
Well,
really, I mean, we can have guidance from coaches like
mm-hmm.
you or myself,
Mm-hmm.
but we really do have to step into that space and go, am I willing to be uncomfortable while I learn
Yeah.
how to do this?
Right. I only would resist the notion of alone in that, again, like the AA programs or the OA programs, others who are on the journey,
Hmm.
even if our journeys are different, even if we're different spaces in our journey, even though, as you point out, in the moment of recognizing I'm triggered and shifting my trigger, that's
Right.
alone work. It's internal work.
Right. And
But
that's more what I mean. Not like I have to sequester myself into a
that's what I mean.
box.
Being with others
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
really profound. A favorite quote of mine comes from Saint Benedict, who founded a monastic order. He says, "The man who is his own master is the disciple of a fool." And I think there really is we can't do it alone.
Hmm.
Now, what you're saying is also true. I'm a deep believer in paradox. Two things can be true that
Right.
seem somehow to not be
Absolutely.
true, but
Absolutely.
we do have to do it alone and we can't do it alone
Right.
are both true, I think,
Right.
for me at least.
Right. Yeah, we have to come to that decision that we're going to do the inner work.
Yes.
And that inner work, because it's in our own head, it's in our own heart, it's in our own gut, we do have to, that is something that we have to manage and process through alone, because nobody else knows what's going on in our head. Even
Mm,
when it comes
hmm.
out of our mouth, it's not always what is going on in our head, because we can't always articulate what we're feeling or what we're
You
thinking.
know, and the Enneagram obviously is not a person,
Right.
but one of the remarkable things about it is that it lays bare the self-talk of the nine types. And I had countless clients, and I'll testify to my own Enneagram journey, where when your type is explained to you, you go, I've never told anybody that.
Hmm.
I've never said that aloud. How does this book know what I think or how I react? I've never told anybody. And
Yeah.
so there is a sense of maybe the universal, what does Jung talk about, the universal consciousness, right?
Hmm.
We tap into something much more than ourselves. Yes, I'm alone. I still have to handle my own rage,
Right.
but I'm not alone. Everyone who's a type 8 has to handle rage like
Right.
eights do. And when I here's the self-talk that keeps the rage going, if I can catch myself in it, I'm being given traction. I'm being given footholds and finger holds, because I think maybe the resistance I'm feeling in myself about that word alone is figuring it out on your own.
Hmm.
And
Right.
that you don't have to figure it out on
Right.
your own. There are
Right.
paths forward.
Yeah.
You have to walk the path. As you say, you have to choose the inner work.
Right.
But it's not, you're not in the dark. You're not stabbing. You don't
No.
have to be stabbing about
No.
wondering, is
No.
this
And
going to work? Or
we're not meant to be. That's why there
we're
are
not meant
so
to be.
many humans, right? We're not, if we were supposed to do this alone, you would be alone, right? You would
Yeah,
be the only
right.
one in this world that needed to go through these journeys or these lessons.
And that's
But we're
part of
not.
also when I talk about the Enneagram gifts, I talk about them as essential gifts. We
Hmm.
need people who are nines. We need people who are fours. We need people who are sevens. And so that also gives you a sense of purpose forward. It's like, okay, I have an essential gift to bring
Yeah.
to my family, to my community, to the world. And it's not just about shadow work, it's about what I like to call the destination postcard. It's about who I can be at my best. And so it's carrot. I want to be this person. I've seen glimmers of it in my life. If I could be more of that more often, that would be wonderful. It's not just shadow work, it's also striving to fulfill what's possible, our
Yeah.
potential.
Yeah.
And we need everyone to do that. It's not like, oh, if Todd's got the gift, then I don't need it. No, I need you. I need what you bring, because
Right.
it's essential and it's unique. And I'm only one of nine types. I need eight other people at least in my life. And they all have to be balanced and centered and healthy. And maybe I'll take more than eight.
So do you have the other eight types around you on a regular basis? Because
I
that's an
do.
interesting view, is how does that um play out, like when you have all nine personalities around each other? How does that play
Yeah,
out?
it
It's
would
really
be awesome
interesting.
if I could gather them in a board meeting, and,
I
and
know. That would be
we
cool.
could wouldn't that be cool? I don't have that, but my wife is a two. My best friend of 30 years is an eight. My oldest daughter is a nine. I have some dear friends here where I live that I see regularly, a six, a three. So I try to diversify my social portfolio the way I
Hmm.
try to diversify my financial portfolio. And I think a lot of people, myself included, struggle with certain types. I don't get along as well with threes as I do with sevens.
Hmm.
And so I have to watch myself not to fall into an echo chamber, and I have to seek out other perspectives, ways of thinking about doing things that wouldn't occur to me naturally.
Yeah.
Sometimes I hire them. I have a business coach who is not a person I probably would have as a friend if I met him at a cocktail party, but he's always pushing me. He's always showing me spots, things that I didn't think of or wouldn't be, intuitively do. And it's
Right.
super, super valuable.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that would be a very interesting experiment, is to see how all of those personality types kind of work together or don't work together.
Yes, or don't.
But to see it from that perspective.
Well, and if I could get just a little esoteric for a moment, the Enneagram, we use it, we call it the Enneagram of personality, and we use it for all of the things we've talked about today.
Hmm.
But in truth, that's not its origin. It is a visual representation, and I don't know if we can put it on the screen for people who are watching, but it is a visual representation of how change happens in the world. That is that there are what we call the forces of change, and there are the processes of change. And the Enneagram is this image that captures both of them. And really, we want all of them. When we want to change something, we begin by envisioning what that change will be. The ideal. In a perfect world, if I could have something that I don't have now, this is what it would be. That's how type ones work. They envision ideals. Now,
Hmm.
the problem for type ones is that they don't move past that and they get stuck in a world of ideals, and we don't live in a world of ideals, and that's exceptionally frustrating for them.
Right.
So you can see how personality types evolve from these steps in the process of change. When we have a vision of what we want, the next step is we explore the world to find out what's even possible. And in the image of an Enneagram, there's a line that connects type 1 and type 7, because sevens are the great explorers. That's what they do. They go out into the world and they discover what's possible, what's new, what's next.
It's
But
neat.
they, sevens, get stuck there. They get stuck there and they don't move on into the
Exactly.
next step. So I talk about as human beings, we don't like change. And so we sort of set up camp at one of the outposts of the process of change. From 7, there's a line that goes to 5. What does 5 do? Deep dive. It starts to weed out what's of all the possibles, which are the good ones. Let's really
Mhm.
dig in and find the best one. But fives get stuck there, just digging and digging and digging and learning and learning and learning and learning. There's a line that goes from 5 to 8. What do eights do? Eights take decisive action. Eights are actors in the world. They get things done. They make a choice and they make it happen. Right? We need that. But what eights fail to do is think about the impact that their actions have on other people. And lo and behold, there's a line that goes from 8 to 2. And what do twos do? They measure the impact of things on other people. They're sensitive, they're aware, they're empathic. They know how people are affected. But guess what? They get stuck there. And so there's a line that goes from 2 to 4. What do 4 do? 4 does an internal check. Says, all right, how do I feel about everything that's gone on? And then 4 goes back to 1, which is the ideal again.
Hmm.
Now that I know how I feel, I've imagined what's possible, I've explored what's possible, I've dug into what's possible, I've made a choice about what's possible, I've seen how that affects other people. How do I feel about it? Back to envisioning what's
Right.
possible again. And 4
Right.
goes to 1. And that's what those lines on the inside of the Enneagram are about. They're not about personality, they're
Right.
about the nature of change in the world. Now, that does leave us 3 types we haven't touched on: 3, 6, and 9. They are an independent triangle in the center of the Enneagram. They don't touch the other types. And that's the process. Oh, sorry, those are the forces of change. The process is the one I just outlined. The forces of change are initiating change, and that's threes. I have a goal, I'm going to make it happen. Resisting change, which is natural part of the universe, right? Newton's law, equal and opposite.
Hmm.
But that's sixes. They live in fear. They poke holes. How's this going to work? Wait a minute. Hold on. Is this right? Is this right? And then there is 9, which is the reconciling energy. And that's the one
Hmm.
that brings together and says, all right, we're going to take forward movement. We're going to acknowledge resistance, and we're going to find this beautiful third way. And so 3, 6, and 9 are also personality types that embody this overarching image of how change happens in the world, and set up camp in them. So forgive me for being esoteric for a little bit, but I think it's really, for me, deeply informative to recognize this isn't a system of personality.
Right.
This is a system of flow.
Yeah.
This is a system of what it means to be a living being, where past and future are concepts and present is all there is. And so there's a man doing fascinating work in Atlanta. He's a neurologist, a doctor, and an Enneagram guy. And he has discovered by treating people with traumatic brain injuries and discovering how their personalities changed depending on which part of their brain was injured, he's mapped the Enneagram onto the brain.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
Hmm.
And one of the most valuable things to come out of his work is the recognition that you are not your type. The human
Right.
brain is capable of all of these energies. Every human brain is capable of empathy. Every human brain is capable
Yeah.
of reconciliation.
Yeah.
So the work then is, and this is where this conversation began, the appropriate application of the appropriate energy. As a five, I over apply my investigative energies. But as I've grown, I've learned to ask the question, what energy is the right energy in this situation? Is it
Mhm.
empathy? Is it decisive action? Is it envisioning what's possible?
Right.
Then let me apply that energy and sort of try to balance my brain instead of using it in the way that I've used it as a child and as a young adult. It got me through, but it was incomplete.
Right.
It was
Right.
lopsided.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I have to just jump back real quick to the 369 being in the
Yeah,
center because that's something that Nikola Tesla would talk about is 369 when you're manifesting what you want. You write it 3 times, 6 times, and 9 times for
curious.
for for several days. But that's what popped in my head when you said that the center of that Enneagram is 369. And then you started to explain what they were, and I'm just like,
Yeah, vision or action,
yeah,
resistance, and reconciliation. The
yeah.
classic image of this is a boat, right? So there's wind,
Hmm.
but wind is worthless without a sail. And in
Right.
point of fact, the sail is resistance to the wind. But then there is the rudder. And the
Right.
rudder converts the resistance of the sail into forward movement. And it's the reconciling force. So it's necessary to have wind to move the boat. It's necessary to
Mhm.
have a sail to move the boat. It's necessary to have a rudder to move the boat. So we
Right.
need our threes, we need our type threes, we need our type sixes, we need our type
Yeah.
nines. But
Well, we need them all, right? We
we
need
need
we
them
need
all. We
everybody.
need our visionaries. We need our
Yeah.
explorers. We need our decisive action takers. Yeah,
And that's
that's
what
the
that creates.
gifts.
That is what will that is what creates balance. Can
Oh,
you
yes, that's
imagine
exactly right.
what our state of the world would be if we had more of this talk in with the world leaders?
That would be remarkable. Yeah, I mean, I do fantasize about that myself at times. One of the fascinating things among Enneagram scholars is they will often, for illustrative purposes, assign cultures Enneagram types.
Hmm.
So, for example, America is often classified as a three. What have you done for me lately? Productivity above all, detachment from our own feelings in service of what must be done. When I made the move from America to Portugal, it was a huge culture shift because there are fours here. The people of Portugal are fours. They're
Yeah.
introspective, they're deep feeling, they believe in their uniqueness, and it's pervasive throughout their mail system, their healthcare system, the way they go out to eat. And it's just like if people had some more awareness of the unconscious patterns that govern so much of our reactions and our responses and our perceptions and interpretations, then we are freed. As long as those patterns remain unconscious, we are beholden to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Todd, is there any?
Awareness, intentionality,
Yeah.
counterbalance.
Yeah, we all need that.
We all need that.
And we definitely need to practice it and teach it and um share it.
That's yeah, and that's when I left the ministry for personal theological reasons. I had walked that journey as far as I could. I left it because I was tired of working evenings and weekends. But in truth, I haven't left my calling. I
Right.
haven't left that feeling that I have something the world needs,
Yeah.
and I can't mass market it. This is not something I can do to a million people at once. I can just do it one person at a time.
Right.
But that's what then that's what I'll do, and
Yeah.
and onward we go.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners about either the Enneagram or emotional intelligence or something that we haven't touched on yet?
I'm not sure. I think I probably mentioned this the first time around, but it's always the note that I like to leave on. Um, so human emotions can only really truly be experienced one at a time. We might be ambivalent about something, but we don't feel both feelings at once. We feel
Right.
this one and then that one, and then this one and then that one. And feelings line up in the limbic system to be experienced something like people lining up outside of the club to get in. And there's a bouncer that only lets certain ones in at a time. But fear is this kind of mean person in line who elbows his way to the front of the line. Doesn't matter what the other ones are, fear finds his way to the front. There's one human experience, one human feeling that is stronger than fear in this lineup to be experienced, and that is hope. And
Mhm.
so, if there's anything I want to leave people with, it's this system, this notion of emotional intelligence, this way of thinking about people. I want them to see that what it is it's hope. It's a way to understand ourselves and others, because change is possible. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be scary. Will it be hard? Yes. Do you
Yeah.
have to go it alone? No.
Right.
And so I want people to know it doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter how hard you're struggling, how bad your relationship is. Hope is real. And that is always the note that I want to end on, because I think it's the great driver. Every movie we watch is hope, is about the human spirit, and truly the human spirit's remarkable. So I want people to have hope.
Yeah. And hope is something that we do need to put more out there. Especially in the way our world is reacting right now. We need we
Yeah,
we
fear is
need there
driving a
to be
lot,
more
isn't
hope.
it?
Yeah,
Fear
yeah.
is driving a lot.
Yeah, we need to bring in that hope. We need to share it. We need to allow it in. Regardless
We
of
do
what
have to invite it
regardless of
in, even. And
what
yeah.
outside entities are sharing with us, we need to understand that there is still hope, and there's nothing wrong with holding on to that.
And hope is truly a rebellious act in many ways.
Hmm.
Fear controls,
Yeah.
and the powers that be in their quest for control often use fear as a tool.
Yep.
And hope is about the most subversive and rebellious thing that we can do at times.
I love
Uh,
that. I want a t-shirt that says hope is rebellious. I mean, that's, when you look at Star Wars, that is the New Hope. It was the rebellion. It's
It is. Yeah, absolutely. George Lucas knew what he was talking about. 100%.
Yeah. Todd, thank you so much for coming on and sharing again your knowledge of the Enneagram and talking with us about emotional intelligence and really how they work together. I really appreciate it.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me. It's a conversation I hope to have 100 more times.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metamorphosis Project podcast. I hope today's episode brought you inspiration, joy, and a spark of empowerment. Remember, transformation is an incredible journey, and every single step you take towards self-care and healing brings you closer to the life you truly desire. If this episode uplifted you, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us to share this journey of hope, resilience, and joy with many listeners. For more tips, support, and inspiration, come and visit us at designyourexistence.com. Until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and keep shining brightly. You are absolutely worth every bit of love and care you give to yourself. Take care, stay joyful, and be well.